Kahal HaKadosh. Normally a rabbi would talk about the Parshat HaShavua, but today I'd like to focus on the Parshat HaShana. This year's Parsha started on Simchat Torah, and is a story about a family, how we formed in our homeland, how we were forced to leave by famine, and how we tried to get back home. The Parshat HaShana is the Torah. In the words of my rabbi and teacher, the late, great Lord Sachs Zatzal, the Torah is a tragedy, but a tragedy that we are tasked to turn into a victory through our tikkun, through completing our own journeys back to the promised land. I'd like to talk about the Parshat HaShana, about our common mission of writing our own happy endings to the Torah and guiding our balabatim to do the same. But first, a little bit about how Lucy, I, and the kids got to Israel. Lucy saw the light in others. It was in her very name. Lucy means light in Latin. When we'd been married 7 years with two young daughters, Maya and Karen, she saw the light in me, a Baal Teshuvah from my teens who'd never been to yeshiva. So the day after I was promoted to director of a large UK private equity fund, I quit with her blessing, and with golden handcuffs left behind, we flew to Israel to live and learn in Efrat. Initially we were nervous about making Aliyah at the end of the Second Intifada, but Lucy decided it for us. She said that dying in Israel was a greater zechut than living in the diaspora, so we packed our bags. We were accidental Zionists. It happens that both my mother's father and my father's grandfather escaped from Riga to Palestine in the 1930s, but somehow their passion skipped a generation or two, and Lucy had no family in Israel whatsoever. We did not expect that during our time in Kollel we would fall in love with Israel, but in Lucy's words, there's simply nowhere else to bring up Jewish kids. In the diaspora, Judaism is a hobby. In Israel, you're living, shopping, playing, working, and fighting side by side with family. Israel is simply home. In Efrat, 80% of the kids build the youth groups, and the youth groups build them. All my girls were madrichot. Rina built a new branch of the Ezra youth group in the north of Efrat from scratch, quickly assembling 30 children, 11-year-old girls from the new neighborhood of Tamar and Dagan. Maya actually had to recruit her own co-madricha, convincing her friend who had retired to come back for two more years of service. When the tragedy struck, Maya was in the middle of her year of Sherut Leumi, interviewing for her second year. When Lucy and I told her 1 year is enough, it's time to start shidduchim, she said girls like me do 2 years of national service. In fact, in Efrat, most of the youth have done 2 years of national service by the time they finish high school by running the youth groups. And many have served in Magen David Adom on a weekly 8-hour ambulance shift. When the terrorists were eliminated 4 weeks after the tragedy, it was some of Maya's friends from Midrashah, now in Modi'in, who were coordinating the attack from a control room in the Shomron. Before I flew out to Israel on Wednesday evening, I popped into Tel HaShomer to meet some of our injured soldiers. I met a nephew of friends of ours from Efrat, a 23-year-old boy who'd lost both legs and an arm. He was in intensive care for 6 weeks and had 35 liters of blood transfusions. It was touch and go. He was sitting up with his family with great spirits. Please God, he will receive the best in prosthetics and then continue his life, returning to Hesder for 2 more years, and then pursuing his ambitions to study law and to build a family. I told him the biggest challenge that he would meet in the years ahead is that everyone who will meet him from now on will consider him a hero. He's an extreme case, but all our youth are heroes. And I could not be more proud of our Israeli youth, including my own 3 children, Karen, Talia, and Yehuda. They are focused on one question when they get up in the morning every day: how can I best serve my people and my country? Israel is where our children, our grandchildren are meant to be, and where they're building a better future for us all. Ein ka'amcha Yisrael goy echad ba'aretz. 2 weeks ago, I was invited to speak on a panel about emergency Aliyah in Jerusalem. The first speaker said, what's happening in America today is worse than Nazi Germany in 1939. And indeed, there are 2 worrying differences. Number 1, the Free Palestine movement does not have any charismatic leader. And number 2, Nazism only took off in 2 geographies, in Germany and Austria. But this movement is springing up like a grassroots movement everywhere you look, with the benefit and alacrity of social media. This movement is uncontrolled wildfire, and it's unpredictable how quickly and how wide it will spread. But I see the call for Aliyah differently. One morning in 2009, when we completed 1 year of our shlichut in England, Lucy woke up and said, we must buy a home in Efrat. Why? Because the shekel could get stronger against the pound, and the house price in Efrat might go up faster than the house prices in Britain, and we may not be able to afford to move there in 5 years' time when we go back. Lucy had no idea about currency, no idea about the real estate market, but when your wife has a dream, what can you do? So we sold our London house, and I went out February 2010, leaving Lucy and 5 kids under the age of 6 behind in London. And I saw every house for sale in the then new suburb of Zayed, sending pictures back to Lucy by internet because there was no smartphones in those days. She chose the house, I bought it. At that point, I could have bought 3 houses in Efrat for the price of 1 home in London. Today, our house in Efrat is worth twice that same home in London. I don't think that you have to believe that America is turning into the Third Reich, but we have to consider that if 5% of our community were to decide tomorrow to leave because they think this is the time, house prices will plummet in our communities, and people may be in a situation where they're not able to afford to move at all. Additionally, consider that as Americans, it's normal to spend a fortune on health insurance, $50,000, $100,000 per family. Why do you do that? Because obviously the insurance companies make a profit. So if you weren't to do them to spend every year, you probably would be better off. But you do it because there's a 1 in 1,000 chance that there'll be God forbid, a $1 million or $5 million health bill that you can't afford. If you think that there's a 1 in 1,000 chance that America will not be a place for you or for your children in the next few years, wouldn't it be worth taking an insurance policy to come to Israel? Shouldn't everyone in your communities have an Aliyah plan ready for action if and when things get worse? Is it not worth urging your balabatim to assemble their close families around the kitchen tables in the next month to discuss what Aliyah might look for them if they have not already done this? How many housing units would they need? Where would they go? How would they cater for grandma and grandpa, or for Chaimi in high school, or for Devorah in college? And set up committees in your communities with balabatim who want to make Aliyah, think about Aliyah. Let them group together to decide on where they're going to go. Maybe they can take you with them. And the truth is, Israel, of course, needs you. I can't tell you how frequently I meet not yet religious Israelis who come back from communities like Kinek or Botra Raton or any of your communities and say, if we'd have had communities like this growing up, we would be religious. And another thing, how great would it be in Israel to double the number of religious Jews? And this could happen. The most important thing, though, is schar mitzvah mitzvah. The reward of living, of making Aliyah, is that you live in Eretz Israel, and every morning you wake up. It's like living in a sukkah or a mikveh all your life. When we go to Olam Haba, we're asked to Pita le Yeshua. I don't think they'll be asking, did we donate to the UJA or go on a mission to Israel? They'll be asking, did we personally make the bold move to actually return home and bring our communities with us? Israel is your country where the Jewish government and the Jewish army are there to protect you, and that may not be the case here. And I hear 2 terutzim very commonly from American Jews to why they're not making Aliyah. Number one, I've got a career. When I retire, I can't transfer my skills. But Hashem sent us COVID. We spent 2 years working from home. That is not true for 99% of our communities. We know we can work from home. We can work from Israel. The second terutz is that we need a strong American Jewry so that America will support Israel in its time of need. Well, we've seen over the last month that America does not support Israel in its time of need. That is not a teretz anymore. We do not need you here to support America. It may seem strange coming from me after what happened to my family and what happened on the 7th of October to be advocating Israel as a safe place. But I want you to remember, before the modern state of Israel, 6 million Jews were killed in 6 years, 1 million per year. And countless millions over the previous centuries were lost to persecution and assimilation in this country, in Ukraine, in Russia, in Poland, in Spain, in Rome, in Greece, and Egypt. The only thing that stands between us and total annihilation is Eretz Israel. We are all safer, and the world is safer because of Israel. And Hashem is calling us home. Last year we celebrated 75 years. And that's a special number because 75 is 3 times 25, and 25 is 1 generation. And 3 generations is the Chazaka, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Once you've been there 3 generations, you're there forever. Hashem said, stop this infighting and these marches, and we want you to fulfill your real purpose to be an Ola Goyim. And immediately the march is finished and we're on the front page of every international newspaper from then on. Additionally, if you say there are 14 million Jews in the world and 7.2 million in Israel, then Rov Am Ba'aretz. According to the Ramban, we know there is not much value in living outside of Israel. According to the Rambam, who we apparently go by, the mitzvah of living in Israel is rabbinic until such time as Rov Am Ba'aretz. I believe the posuk is in this week's parsha. And then it becomes a Torah mitzvah. We're there or thereabouts. If you want to be a Reformed Jew living in Monsey or Lakewood, Gegesund, it's just another Torah mitzvah that you choose not to keep, but it's soon not going to be an option for our communities. And if you say that living in Israel is a mitzvah kiyumit, like tzitzit, then I have 2 terutzim. Number 1, when did we ever say that it was not essential to wear tzitzit? Secondly, there are 2 great punishments in the Torah, in the Parshat Hashanah, the golden calf and the meraglim. On the face of it, there could be nothing worse than worshipping idols the moment after Hashem personally told us not to do so. 3,000 people die in the aftermath and more in the plague. But the greatest punishment of all came for the meraglim. The whole people were sentenced to a slow death in the Midbar over 40 years. And what was the sin of the meraglim? They chose to stay in diaspora where food was cheap and they had the best Rosh Kollel, Moshe Rabbeinu, and they didn't have to work the land or fight in the army. For that sin, Hashem handed out the most severe punishment in Jewish history. And if you say like the Lubavitcher Rebbe, I am the captain of the ship, I will be the last one to go, then let me remind you, he's talking about a sinking ship. American Jewry is a sinking ship, and that means that every one of you, your task is to issue off the boat, every one of your communities before you leave. The open anti-Semitism that we're witnessing now in America is a bracha. Hashem is giving us a warning to act now while property prices are at an all-time high. Hashem has sent us 2 boats and a helicopter, or maybe that's an helicopter. Let's hear the message. Distinguished rabbis of great communities around America, you are leaders, and you can choose to lead. You can gather your shul communities together, and you can talk about the liquidation of your communal buildings. What is the property worth? $10 million, $20 million? That money could be spent on a new shul in Beit Shemesh, in Modi'in, in Beersheba, and leave change to buy the community space to build a building. You can move lock, stock, and barrel as a community, rabbis, teachers, chazan, and all. If that sounds strange, then consider that it probably seems strange to the Mir when it moved from Poland to Jerusalem, or for Ponovich when it moved from Lithuania to Bnei Brak. And frankly, there's an even better template for you Americans. We all know the original York, Jersey, and Hampshire are in England. Why not start new Teaneck HaChadasha, Boca Raton HaChadasha, Lakewood HaChadasha in the Holy Land now? And by the way, I was reminded by Rabbi Shalom Baum, there's a Gemara Mefureshet that actually says that at some point all these communities will pick up and leave lock, stock, and barrel and set up in the Holy Land. Our generation needs nothing less than a transformative approach. Indeed, I've spoken to a number of yeshiva high schools and girls' high schools this week, and a number of them are on the brink of launching sizable funding campaigns for new buildings. My advice to each of them was, build in Eretz Yisrael. Whatever bricks you put in the ground in America will only be temporary. Your investment in Israel will be forever. The Ibn Ezra says, the bricks built in Israel are bricks built in Shemayim. Imagine if American Jews sent the next generation high school kids to Israel in Panimiyot. I pay $5,000 a year for my son in the best Panimiyah in Israel, which happens to be in Efrat. That's because the state of Israel pays his Chodesh and Chol and much of his accommodation. We all know that the American community cost structure is no longer sustainable. Another sign that Hashem has gently been saying, please come home. Late October, I was in London in Trafalgar Square. The 100,000 strong Jewish crowd, including hundreds of rabbis and communal leaders, were all chanting, bring them home, bring them home. Hashem had us put posters up around the streets of every Jewish town in the world. Hashem is calling to us, rabbis and communal leaders in the diaspora, bring them home. 2,000 years ago, there was a fire in our home. It burnt down. Our family dispersed in a panic all over the globe to run to safety. But let me tell you, our home has been rebuilt with all the latest fire safety devices. It now has sprinklers, alarms, and every modern comfort. It has the biggest heated pool, the Kinneret, and its own spa in the Dead Sea. It has a way of turning our kids into menschs through national service and the army. It's the place where every Jew is valued, everyone has a role, a purpose. Our family is mostly back, but now Hashem is calling us all home. His calls are becoming overwhelming and soon may become unbearable. Times have changed, and now the fire is raging outside in the streets. So please listen to his call to you. Bring them home. Please come home.